it's Eva here to tell you about Unit 2. Unit 2 is writing from notes, which ends up being relatively simple after you have a really good keyword outline. And so as we talked, and when you're rewriting a paper, you would want to write your keyword outline first on one day, and then on day 2, you would want to have the student retell you the story from their notes without looking at the original source text. So they're going to take the words that they wrote down and they're going to make them into sentences to see if their keyword outline worked. On the third day, the student is going to write a rough draft. Rough drafts are really important. They should be done because compositions can always be improved upon. Also, students often make mistakes while they're writing their initial draft, and so do adults. So it's really important to go back and see if they've missed any punctuation or capital letters and fix that, and then they can write their final draft after it's fixed. So this is an example of the rough draft in the student resource notebook of the KKPO, and it has examples of things being crossed out and edited, and so that is extremely important to make sure the student is writing a rough draft. As the student is writing their rough draft, if they are struggling with things like spelling, be a human dictionary for them. It is okay if they have to stop and ask you how to spell a word, even if it's a word they had on their spelling test last week. It is a difficult task to learn a new skill like writing, and our brains sometimes struggle with composition and spelling and grammar and pushing them all together, especially when learning a new skill. So IEW really encourages the parent to be there to help your students spell things. We want them to love writing, so try not to put them down for forgetting how to spell a word, because we all do it. We're all like, oh, come on, you just had that word. How do you not know how to spell it? Don't do that. We want them to love reading. Writing. We want them to love reading too. Makes them a better writer. But just really encourage them by helping them make good word choices, by helping them to spell. If your student gets stuck on a word and you want them to use a different word, it is okay. IEW encourages the parents to help. You can give them a couple options. Were they scared? Were they frightened? Were they terrified? And let the student pick. It's still their own work because they're thinking things through and they're choosing. They don't have the vocabulary bank that you as an adult have. Help them grow that by giving them some options. So after they write their rough draft, they will write and they have edited it, which there is a sheet for editing in the student resource notebook, or you can look one up online to know how to draw like 3 lines underneath the letter to show that it needs to be a capital letter, or crossing things out to respell them differently. So those are important skills for the student to have too, just to know how to edit something. So they will write their final draft on the last day, and this should be typed out. This should be an ELA format, which is in the student resource notebook. If your student needs help either writing their rough draft or typing their final draft, these things are okay, especially the student's first year of IEW, and especially if they're young or a reluctant writer. I have had students myself that I have written their rough draft their first year, and I've let them help type it, depending on their typing skills. Sometimes I have written and typed all their papers for the first year. By the second year, they're excited. They want to do it. They don't dread it because they haven't had to think of how to spell the words, think of the correct punctuation, and come up with the ideas. It's complicated. So encourage your student as they're rewriting it to come up with their own words. The story is going to sound really similar, especially at first, but encourage them to try to think of some synonyms that could describe the paper differently than they originally did. So learning to write their own rough draft, learning to type, obviously typing in our day and age is an important skill. Encourage them in these things, but don't force it, especially their first year of IEW. I wanted to go over a couple things that IEW had on a, I don't even remember where I got this piece of paper. I think it was from the English Essentials in English Language, but I'm not positive. But so it was talking about holding back help, and it said, Some teachers, meaning well, might think, it won't be fair if I help too much. I shouldn't just tell them what to write, it wouldn't be their own work. There's truth to that statement, but let's not forget our goal and our purpose: to model structure and style, teach through application, and develop confidence and fluency. It is okay to help a child pass a block, even so far as dictating to them 2 or 3 possible which clauses, or allowing them to choose one and use it. Did they think of it themselves? No, but so what? They chose one, they used it, and in the process of using it, they learned. You may have to spoon feed some examples many times, but ultimately they will start to think of possibilities on their own. Children who read a lot will be more likely to come up with words and constructions needed for success with stylistic techniques, but there's nothing illegal about teaching by providing examples and options. It's especially important for reluctant writers. How else will they learn? I really liked that. That meant a lot to me because I sometimes struggle with, should I help? Should I not help? I don't know. So that was really encouraging. And so remember that teaching writing is an art. They have to practice, they improve. We guide them in what is a better way of doing something, what's more appealing. So as your student writes their paper, just encourage them. Try not to make it a right or wrong thing. This is an expression of themselves and how they look at the paper. So I'm just going to read through the example from the student resource notebook of the final draft for the KK-PO. So the student titled it Tree Hopping Weirdo. And so it says the KK-PO is a green parrot that lives in New Zealand. The name KK-PO means night parrot because of its flightless escapades. The KK-PO has the body of a parrot and the face of an owl, which makes it a rather peculiar creature and maybe a little frightening to come across at night. It cannot fly, but it can climb trees. It gracefully glides from tree to tree as it uses its wings for balance. Unfortunately, the KK-PO is an endangered species. Although predators may find this tree-hopping weirdo strange prey, it is all too easy for them to seize this flightless bird. So, as you may have noticed, that last sentence had the title of the paper in it, and that is what we encourage the students to do. They will look at the last sentence of the paper and they will come up with a title to help give an idea of the whole paper. So that is writing from notes, and I hope it was helpful.